In the autumn of 1888, a shadow fell over the grim, gaslit streets of London's East End. A merciless killer began a reign of terror that would grip the city, and indeed the world, in a vice of fear. This phantom, known only by the chilling name he gave himself, Jack the Ripper, would become history's most infamous and elusive serial killer. His identity remains a profound mystery, a puzzle that has captivated and horrified people for over a century. Today, we're stepping back in time into the foggy cobblestone alleyways of Whitechapel to unravel the terrifying story of Jack the Ripper and explore the enduring enigma he left behind. The story begins in the district of Whitechapel, a place of extreme poverty, overcrowding, and desperation. The narrow, labyrinthine streets were poorly lit, creating the perfect hunting ground for a predator. The victims of the Ripper were all women living on the fringes of society, forced into precarious lives to survive. Their vulnerability made them easy targets for a killer who moved through the darkness like a ghost. The first victim widely attributed to Jack the Ripper was Mary Ann Nichols. Discovered on August 31, 1888. Her murder was brutal, setting a horrifying pattern. Just over a week later, on September 8th, the body of Annie Chapman was found. The savagery of her murder escalated, and panic began to spread through London like wildfire. The police were baffled, struggling to find any meaningful clues in a world without modern forensic science. They were dealing with a type of killer they had never encountered before, one who seemed to kill for the sheer thrill of it. As September drew to a close, the Ripper struck again, this time with shocking audacity. In the early hours of September 30th, two women, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, were murdered within the same hour, an event that would become known as the double event. Strides. Murder appeared to have been interrupted, but the attack on Eddowes was one of the most gruesome yet. The killer was becoming bolder, more frenzied, and seemingly unstoppable. The press sensationalized the killings, printing every lurid detail and fueling public hysteria. It was during this time that a letter mockingly signed Jack the Ripper was sent to the Central News Agency. Whether it was from the actual killer or a cruel hoaxer, the name stuck, forever branding the unknown murderer. The city was on high alert. The police, led by Scotland Yard, launched one of the largest manhunts in history. They conducted house-to-house inquiries, interviewed thousands of people, and patrolled the streets in force. Vigilante groups, like the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, also formed, taking to the streets in an attempt to protect their community and catch the killer themselves. But the Ripper was always one step ahead, vanishing back into the city's underbelly without a trace. The atmosphere was thick with suspicion and paranoia. Neighbors eyed each other warily, and every stranger was a potential suspect. The final canonical victim, Mary Jane Kelly, represented the horrifying climax of the Ripper's spree. On November 9, 1888, her horribly mutilated body was discovered in her own room at Miller's Court. This was the only murder to occur indoors, allowing the killer ample time to carry out his most depraved acts. The sheer brutality of the crime scene shocked even the most hardened police officers and pathologists. It was an act of pure, unrestrained violence that marked the end of the killing spree as suddenly as it had begun. After Mary Jane Kelly, the murders stopped. Jack the Ripper simply disappeared. So, who was he? This is the question that has fueled countless books, documentaries, and theories for over 130 years. The list of suspects is long and varied, ranging from the plausible to the utterly bizarre. Let's look at some of the most prominent names. One of the earliest and most compelling suspects was Montague John Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher who was found drowned in the River Thames in December 1888, shortly after the last murder. His own family suspected him, and his convenient death fits the timeline. However, there's no direct evidence linking him to the crimes, only circumstantial suspicion. Then there's Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish hairdresser who lived in Whitechapel and suffered from severe mental illness. He was a favored suspect of Chief Constable Melville McNaughton, one of the lead investigators. Kosminski was eventually institutionalized, and his mental state and hatred of women made him a strong candidate in the eyes of the police. In recent years, controversial DNA evidence from a shore allegedly found near one of the victims pointed towards him, but the validity of this evidence is hotly debated by experts. Another intriguing suspect is Suwarin Klasowski, also known as George Chapman. He was a Polish immigrant who was later convicted and executed for poisoning 3 of his wives. He had some medical knowledge and a known history of violence against women, but Inspector Frederick Aberline, one of the key detectives on the case, was reportedly convinced that Chapman was the Ripper after his conviction. But his method of killing poison was vastly different from the Ripper's brutal surgical-style attacks. The theories don't stop there. Some have pointed to doctors and surgeons like Sir William Gull, the Queen's own physician, as part of a complex Masonic conspiracy. Others have suggested artists like Walter Sickert, who had a morbid fascination with the murders, and even claimed to have inside knowledge. There are even theories that Jack the Ripper was actually a woman, Jill the Ripper, perhaps a midwife who could move through the streets covered in blood without arousing suspicion. The possibilities seem endless, and each theory has its own set of clues, red herrings, and passionate believers. The lack of a definitive answer is precisely what makes the case so enduring. Jack the Ripper wasn't just a murderer. He was a phenomenon. He exposed the dark underbelly of Victorian society, the stark contrast between its prim, proper facade and the brutal reality of poverty in its capital city. The case also revolutionized police work, highlighting the need for better forensic techniques and criminal profiling. The media frenzy surrounding the murders set a new standard for sensationalist journalism, the effects of which we still see today. The 5 canonical victims, Neri Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly were more than just names in a grim ledger. They were women with lives, hopes, and struggles whose stories were tragically cut short. While we are fascinated by the mystery of their killer, it's crucial to remember the human cost of his crimes. Their tragic fate served as a brutal wake-up call about the conditions of the poor and the dangers faced by women in a society that offered them little protection. Over a century later, the fog over Whitechapel has lifted, but the shadow of Jack the Ripper remains. He is a ghost in our collective history, a faceless embodiment of evil who challenged society and then vanished, leaving behind nothing but a blood-soaked legacy and a question that may never be answered. Who was Jack the Ripper? The mystery itself has become the story, a chilling tale that continues to fascinate and terrify us in equal measure. What do you think? Do any of the suspects seem more likely than others? Or do you believe the Ripper's identity is a secret lost to time forever? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into one of history's darkest mysteries. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating stories from the past. See you next time.